Welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host, the Salty Nerd. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing movies that have to do with time travel. As we picked for this week, our topic, time travel, is the subject, and the subject is time travel. And we are talking Hot Tub Time Machine, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and 12 Monkeys. So join us for this discussion and have some fun. I am joined today by my podcast co-hosts, Juju, the ambassador of estrogen.
First and foremost.
First, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having
me. I love your
me.
tuxedo.
Well, thank you.
It's her casual tux.
I'm also joined by the barbarian himself. Good morning, Matt Vader.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. I'm fantastic.
This is an overly complicated intro, I know, but it's all right. Also, the author extraordinaire, Matthew Kadish. What's up, man?
Hello. I saw that you brought a copy of one of my books today.
I did. I bought a copy on Amazon. It's Sinful, The Devil's Breath.
Yes, my Las Vegas mystery series.
Which is, it's under the name Maxwell Cambridge.
That was a secret, man.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Just pen name.
I suppose it's your adult content series, right?
Yeah, so for those out there who care, if you're a professional author, you always want to use a different pen name for different genres because if, like for instance, my Earthman Jack series, I write under my own name. So if people see the name Matthew Kadish, they associate it with science fiction.
Yeah.
So if I were to put my name on a mystery novel, they'd buy it and be like, where's the science fiction? So because it's a contemporary adult mystery, I decided to do it under a different pen name, Maxwell Cambridge.
So if we do another podcast, can we pick new names?
Sure.
We have to start new social media accounts, though.
I'm going to be Theodore Snodgrass.
Wait, you mean your name's not Matt Vader?
No, it's not.
Remember that time his wife was like, what'd you call him?
Yeah. You didn't tell your wife that we all call you Matt Vader. What a dork.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. They call you Vader, really?
But,
It's like, yeah, what about it?
You're such a nerd.
I actually had Alex audition to do the audio.
I don't like talking about this, Kadish. I don't. I had a $25 microphone and no experience.
Well, it wasn't so much the microphone or the sound quality. Like he sent me his audition piece.
I was
with all the mess ups in it, and like he'd be like every time mess up, he'd keep in the swear word and stuff like that. I was like, this is a really professional audition.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah, I know.
It
was
wasn't.
being ironic.
I know. Please don't spread that.
Speaking of pen names, the same goes for audiobook narration. So if you are a voiceover actor and you're doing audiobook narration, you change your pen name depending on the genre that you're into.
Right now, my voiceover name is Alexander Stevenson.
Right. What?
Jude has an alias for when she gets drunk.
Anyway, enough fluff. Enough fluff. Welcome, everybody, to the show.
I don't know who any of you
Have you
people
been
are.
sufficiently fluffed, sir?
This is the content people pay us for.
I say when the fluffing is done by you.
She is the ambassador of estrogen.
Not quite ready to go on the air yet. Oh, man. I need some more fluffing. Fluffer!
Mackenzie Taylor's just in the wings.
Oh, yeah, Mackenzie Taylor. Yeah.
Oh, his face just lit up. I love it when you
That's
get
my girl.
happy.
Porn.
Yeah, when are you starting your porn podcast?
Oh, Lord.
Episode by episode. We're diving deep.
Today we're reviewing...
Buttholes.
Are you sure this isn't a Patreon episode?
It might be funny enough to leave in.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see. All right. Anyway, so today we're going to start with Jude's pick, I believe, is Hot Tub Time Machine.
Heck yeah.
So I chose the topic of time travel this week, and everybody else got to pick the movies that they chose. And this was the only one that I felt like was...
Alex instantly regretted it.
Yeah, I did. It seems to be a running theme.
Yeah.
Everybody picks a topic that we really love, and then everybody else just picks like these terrible
Yeah,
movies.
ever since we started doing this, that's
the thing.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago?
Yeah. Anyway, so Jude, why don't you tell us about Hot Tub Time Machine and why you picked it for this week?
Okay. I forget what year this came out. 2009?
I believe that it came out in 2010.
Oh, okay.
Close.
So filmed in 2009, released in 2010. A group of high school friends get reunited over the attempted suicide of one of their crew. And he doesn't have any family, so they decide to try and lift his spirits by taking him to a place where they were all last happy and carefree and wild. And their first night there, they end up partying in a hot tub in their room, and hijinks ensue, and they end up back in the year 1986.
Seems to be a pretty big year for you guys, because the last couple of podcasts, you guys have chosen movies from like the 1987, 1986 range.
It's the pinnacle of 80s.
That was the height of 80s cinema right there. Was like the 95 to 98, or I'm sorry, 85 to 88 time
You don't
frame.
know because you weren't
Yeah, it was
there.
good.
I
It's a
wasn't
good
there.
era.
I was born in 88.
Michael Jackson was still black.
Reagan was president. All was right.
All was right in the world. Back to the Future was
Aquanet,
cinemas.
big hair.
Oh, yeah.
Metal was metal.
So what did you?
I wish I had Jesse's girl.
That's Stacy's mom for us, my generation. Jesse's girl is Stacy's mom.
It's a poor facsimile.
Like most things your generation.
Anyway, Jude, why did you pick this movie? Is it
Because it
I'm
literally
trying to keep us on track.
It literally had Time Machine in the title.
Is that it? Or do you really love this movie?
No, I really love this movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
And it's another one of those movies that Kadish and I quote back and forth on the couch.
Love this movie.
Yeah. And I know I saw this in the theater. I don't remember with who or why or where. But I've probably seen this movie probably a dozen times since it came out. And I just find it hilarious. I think it's truly offensive in a hilarious way.
In the best way possible.
Yeah.
It does
yeah.
have a lot of offensive
Yeah.
content.
Back when like offensive humor was really funny, this is that movie.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, back in the day.
The actor Rob
Corddry, yeah.
Corddry,
Yeah.
he was by far the one that was bringing all the raunchy stuff into the
Oh, yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was written specifically for him because apparently, like, he's really like that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
No, I want to party with him.
Really?
Yeah.
He tried to have gay sex with his own son.
No,
He just tried to give
he
him a
tried to have a
hand.
three-way.
Was it a four-way or a
Yeah,
three-way?
It was a
three-way.
three-way because
Yeah.
she only does two at a time.
That's right.
But
with his mom or something. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't his mom.
No, it's just a random.
some
Was it?
random,
Okay. But
random snow bunny.
He did try to fillet an impossibly black penis.
That scene was so rough. Oh,
That scene was great.
I totally forgot that Sebastian Stan was in this movie. He played the douchebag ski resort guy.
Yes.
He's the Winter Soldier from
And
MCU.
did you catch the appearance of Johnny Lawrence from Karate Kid?
Yes. Who was he? He was
He was he was the one that did the bet with him. That was like, all right, you blow your
Yeah.
buddy if you lose this.
That's right.
And Crispin Glover from Back to the Future,
So
another time
great.
travel movie.
A lot of good little sneaky appearances. Chevy Chase.
Yeah, it was good.
But the core group, I thought Craig Robbins, Clark Duke, and John Cusack, along with Rob Corddry, they just had the most amazing chemistry.
Absolutely.
Like they all nailed the roles that they were supposed to play.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a sucker for John Cusack movies. Like even his bad ones, I love.
Love them.
There's no such
Yeah.
thing as a bad John Cusack movie.
Yeah. What was that one where he was a bodyguard for Hillary Duff or something like that?
Oh,
Came
that
out
was
a while
pretty
ago.
bad.
That was pretty rough, but I loved it though. It was still fun to watch.
Gross Point Blank, right?
Oh, I love that movie.
Say Anything.
Say anything. My favorite is
Better Off Dead.
Dead.
Yeah.
That's my favorite John Cusack.
One
movie.
Crazy
One
Summer.
Crazy Summer.
So anything with him in it,
Yeah.
I'm sold.
That one with the alternate personalities.
Oh, Identity.
Identity. Love that.
Yeah,
movie.
that's a good one. A more serious role.
Yeah.
So Vader, you haven't said anything in a minute. What did you think about this movie? Do you enjoy this movie? Or
Oh
you
yeah,
kinda
I love
just-
this. It's fun.
Oh, okay, good.
Super fun movie. Yeah.
Wasn't
Crazy, raunchy,
Boobs.
boobs.
Oh yeah, lots of boobs, huh?
It's
Did that for you, V.
it's good.
Well, originally Matt picked Hot Tub Time Machine, but Jude had already called it.
Oh, that's right.
So they were of like the same mind on this movie.
I forgot about that. That's right.
I remember I commented last week about no good comedy movies made after 2004.
Yeah.
Kind of forgot about this one.
It feels like it was made in 2004 because it fits into that category. But
unfortunately, its sequel wasn't all that good.
Yeah. Most of it is in the 80s. So
yeah. Anything 80s is good, I guess.
yeah.
Well, it's funny because the guy who wrote this, Josh Heald, he like the concept for this movie came about because like he wanted to write like an 80s comedy because he grew up on all these 80s comedies that he loved. And he was like, there's only 3 categories of 80s comedies. There's like the ones that happen on the ski resorts, the ones that happen in an academy, and I forget the other one. But so he was like hanging out with one of his friends, and they were talking about like their love of 80s movies. And his friend was like, man, someone should remake that movie Hot Dog. And he misheard his friend. He thought he said hot tub. And Heald was like, wait, there's a movie called Hot Tub? How come I've never heard of this before? And his friend was just confused. He's like, what are you talking about? I said hot dog. And he's like, oh, there needs to be a movie called Hot Tub. So he decided he wanted to make like an 80s ski comedy called Hot Tub. And he couldn't figure out how to do it. And so he was like, well, what if people traveled back to the 80s? That way I could do like a self-aware 80s like ski comedy. And so he came up with, what if the hot tub was also a time machine? And so like he sat down, he wrote this like detailed outline for Hot Tub Time Machine. And he went and pitched it. And I think the first studio he pitched it to might have been Sony or I forget which. But they were like, this is either going to be truly brilliant or truly awful. We're down. And so he wrote it. He wrote the part of Violator for Rob Corddry specifically. And then John Cusack came on board, and the rest of the cast just kind of like filled out. And he I think Heald was also the guy who kind of pushed to get Johnny from Karate Kid in there because he based Sebastian Stan's character on he called it the 80s asshole trope, which was basically pioneered by Johnny from Karate Kid. You know, like William Zabka kind of pioneered the 80s asshole trope. And so to get him to come onto the movie in a cameo was like the height of the screenwriters like I'm actually making an 80s movie.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think at one point when the ski patrol dicks are like messing with someone in the background yells, put him in a body bag.
Yeah.
And that's straight out of Karate Kid.
Yeah, you made us rewind
I did.
the video
I did.
so she could make sure someone actually said that.
I was like, did he really just say that?
That's one of the big lines from Karate Kid. Put him in
was
the body bag.
That whole bet and the aftermath of the losing the bet, that was like, damn.
There's so many great gags in this movie.
Yeah, talk about gags. It's so black. Oh my
It's so
God.
impossibly black.
Set the stage for the gag in case anyone hasn't seen this.
Yeah, my goodness. So there's a scene, I can't remember what they were betting on.
So it was a football game that because they're from the future, they knew the outcome of this game. And so they start betting everyone in the bar that they were at about like certain things like when a touchdown's going to be scored or whatever. And they're just cleaning up. And there's this guy there played by, Billy Zabka, who's like kind of being a dick about all their winnings. And he's got this super hot wife. And so like Violator, Rob Corddry's character, he's like, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a bet. And he comes up with a bet for the final score of the game. And if he wins, the guy's wife has to blow him. And so
she was strangely okay with that.
Yeah,
It was the 80s.
yeah. And I love that line where they're watching the thing. He just turns to her and he's like, "I'm really good at getting head."
He's like, I'm really good at getting head. You'll see.
So why did they lose the bet? Did they
That
forgot
squirrel.
which one?
No, what happened was they changed history when Violator vomited on that squirrel and sent him running.
Oh.
And the squirrel ran out onto the field and interfered with the catch, the game-winning catch.
Makes no sense, but okay.
Yeah. And so like the team ends up losing the game because they changed history.
Right.
Our heroes, and so like in order to get the guy to agree to let his wife blow him, he had to agree to blow his friend if they lost.
Which was Chris Robinson.
Yeah, Chris Robinson's character, and so they were like, dude, we know how this game ends.
Yeah.
Like there's no way we're going to lose. And so Craig Robinson agrees to it. And then like when
I have that line though, he's like, I don't like you taking liberties with my dick.
And the thing that we got to talk about with all these movies that we chose this week is the time travel logic, because a time travel movie is only as good as the logic of the time traveling. Like if it makes sense, if it's consistent, if you can like actually think about it for 2 seconds and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like it's typically a good time travel movie.
I'm a lot more lenient on time travel movies than you are. Like I try not to pick them apart too much because time travel as a concept is flawed anyway, because there's always that feedback loop or the grandfather paradox of if you change something in the past and it changes in the future, then how do you end up
and that's always
in the same situation to get to the past in the first place?
That's always the trick with time travel movies is like everyone's trying to figure out what the rules are.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this movie is that they're all very self-aware of how time travel works. And in the scene where they're trying to figure out like what's going on, they talk about Terminator. And so like they figure that they have to act like the time travel in Terminator in order to keep everything the same. Because they talk about the butterfly effect, and Rob Corddry's like, "Oh, that was a good movie."
I love that movie. I do love that movie.
So they've all seen like the time travel movies, and they're like, "Okay, we have to do everything that we actually did back in 1986 or whatever," and that way, like, we can't change history and have Hitler become president of the world and stuff like that. So they set about trying to
recreate everything.
Yeah, like do everything that they did back in the 80s. Like, John Cusack has to break up with this girl.
Yeah. There was a scene where Craig was having sex with some chick in a bathroom.
With a groupie.
And he was just weeping.
Yeah, because he's like, cheating on his wife.
I'm cheating on my wife. I can't believe this.
and she's like, wait, you're married? And he's like, no, she's
like
9.
She's 9 right now.
Are you guys going to finish talking about the bar gag?
Oh, the bar gag. Yeah. Sorry. So anyway, they end up losing this bet because they changed history in a way that caused the football game to go in the opposite direction. So the bet was that he would have to blow his friend Craig Robinson. Rob Corddry would have to blow Craig Robinson in their characters in the movie. And so they have this scene. It's almost like a fight circle.
Yeah.
There's just like,
and they're all in the bathroom.
Yeah, they're all in the bathroom.
Everyone from the bar
but there's
is in this bathroom.
Like 30 people in there, and they're all circled around them, and they're just like blow,
do it.
Rob gets down on his knees, and he's looking at Craig's cock, and he's like, it's so impossibly black. Oh, my God. And he looks up at him, he's like, I love you, man. I love you. Craig's like, stop saying that.
He's like, but I do.
and the way it's shot, like he just opens his mouth and it's like a slow zoom in on his mouth where he's going like,
And then Craig Robinson passes out.
So nice.
And when he comes to, Violator is standing at the sink and he's got like jizz all over his face. He's like, hey man, how you doing?
He starts freaking out. He's like, it's just soap. It's just soap. Relax.
Yeah.
It was, that whole scene was just freaking hilarious. Top notch, like raunchy comedy. It was
this whole
so
movie's
funny.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I like how, so like they set up when they go to the ski resort that they stayed in the same room like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they had carved this thing in a drawer that says Nick sucks cocks and dicks. And it's all spelled incorrectly.
Yeah.
And when they go back in time, they're like, quick, check the inscription. So like they pull out the drawer and it's not there. And John Cusack is like the cocks and dicks inscription's not here. And Rob Corddry's like, wait a minute, is cocks there? And he's like, no cocks. He's like, what about dicks? He's like, no, neither cocks nor dicks is in the drawer. I mean, like this movie's just full of like really sophisticated time travel gags. Actually, I was very impressed. So like in crafting a time travel story, there's like a couple different philosophies on time travel that you can kind of adhere to. One is the fixed timeline, which is basically everything that has happened has already happened. So like if you go back in time and you start interacting with people, you always went back in time and interacted with those people. And so like you can't really change anything because everything that you already did in your time travel led to you eventually
being
going
there
back
in the first place. Yeah.
And that's kind of the we're going to talk about 12 Monkeys later on. That was the 12 Monkeys kind of take on time travel. Whereas then you have like the multiverse version of time travel, which is when you go back in time.
It's the Back to the Future version.
Yeah, when you go back in time, you change stuff. And so when you go back to your present, you're in a different like alternate timeline. And the cool thing about this movie is like it starts off where they think that they're in a fixed timeline thing, where they have to like do everything that they did in the past in order to keep their timeline consistent. But then they realize that they can actually like change things for the better. And so it becomes a multiverse kind of timeline thing. And it's got so many like these great tropes that they kind of play off of, like the kid who doesn't exist if their parents don't have sex.
Yeah.
It's very Back to the Future.
Yeah, very Back to. He's actually. I thought the way that they visually showed that, where he was like glitching out like an old VCR. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and like when so the funny thing is Rob Corddry's character, I just call him Violator because that's the only name I remember.
Lou.
Yeah,
Google.
Lou. Yeah, Lou.
So, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
So there's this character in the movie played by Clark Duke. His name is Jacob, and he's John Cusack's nephew in the movie. And so when they go back in time, John Cusack's sister is at the ski resort, and she's like kind of hot and slutty and stuff. And Lou,
And dumb.
yeah, and dumb,
very dumb.
and so Lou is kind of like into her.
Yeah,
And Lou has this very contentious relationship with Jacob. Like he just hates him.
they both hate each other.
Yeah.
Well, Lou in particular is very kind of aggressively hateful towards Jacob at the beginning. Like he just thinks he's a loser and a pansy. And so they have this like weird, like kind of burdening relationship as the movie goes on. Then you find out that Lou is actually Jacob's father because he banged John Cusack's sister in the past.
That scene was funny too because he was like standing there watching it happen. He's like, "You got to do it, man, for my son's future."
Yeah. And Rob Corddry is like when he's orgasming, he's like Shia LaBeouf, dropping loads.
And she immediately is like, I feel pregnant.
Yeah, and then Jacob just reappears and he's like,
he just pops it.
Yeah.
And then he tackles his father. I freaking hate you.
but now that Lou knows that Jacob is his son, he's like super like nice to him.
Yeah, super nice. Changes 180.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he's such a scamp.
I love you, son.
But what's weird about that whole thing is like, so the idea that Lou goes back in time and has sex with John Cusack's sister and is
now Jacob's
father, that had to have already happened in order for Jacob to just exist.
But then why would he forget?
They were wasted that entire weekend.
But the whole purpose of it being like a multiverse thing means that, they change stuff. And so like it was implied that originally Lou didn't hook up with the sister.
Right. But then Jacob would be a different person.
Exactly. So like the time travel logic in this movie isn't quite all that well thought out, but it's so entertaining that you just don't care.
Yeah,
you don't have to have time travel logic in this kind of a movie.
Yeah.
Just make it fun.
It can even make fun of its own flaws.
It's not like it's Star Trek where we're gonna like dissect it with a fine
which I find that to be a little bit unfair that we're so critical of others.
But
time travel movies.
The method of creating like a wormhole to travel back in time in this movie is literally a Russian energy drink that spills in the hot tub.
I want some of that Chernobyl for sure.
Did you notice? So Sebastian Stan, aka the Winter Soldier, he plays the ski
resort douchebag.
Yeah, the kind of head ski patrol guy, and he's obsessed with this movie called Red Dawn.
Oh yeah,
and the truck that Crispin Glover drives everyone around in, that's an exact replica of the truck from Red Dawn that they're driving around in.
That's funny.
And
there's a lot of Red Dawn references in this.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, "Gotta get them, man. They're Russians or something.
They're Ruskies."
And then his buddy's like, "Yeah, but what if they're like not?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
And Sebastian Stan's like, "Look, I'm an American."
He's so patriotic.
I bet I've seen that movie 50 times.
I don't think I've ever seen the original one. I may have seen like half of the one with Chris Hemsworth in it, but
so good,
not the same.
No, I doubt it is. I'm just saying. Patrick Swayze was in
Patrick
it.
Swayze,
Rob Lowe.
Yeah,
Rob Lowe.
Leah
was
Thompson.
In it too? What? Leah Thompson was in it too? Dang. Yeah, I gotta go watch that.
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen was it? So it was like the Outsiders just reorganized and made the Red Dawn movie.
Well, I think
was Tom Cruise in it?
No. But one of the great gags in this movie that I loved was, so Crispin Glover plays the bellboy at the ski resort.
Yeah.
And when we first see him, like he's missing an arm.
And he hates the world.
Yeah. And he's just like so bitter and like mean. and angry. And so like back in the 80s, he's actually like a very nice guy, and he's got both arms. And the entire...
And he's like an ice sculpting chainsaw champion.
And so like the entire movie, like every time we see Crispin Glover, he's doing something that puts his arm in jeopardy, like inadvertently. And all the characters just stop and they're like, is this when he loses his arm?
Yeah. And every time he doesn't lose his arm, Lou gets irate.
Yeah, he gets really disappointed. It's like, oh man, I thought this was the time.
That's funny.
Like everything about this movie is funny. And like John Cusack, there's a point where like he was going to break up with this girl like he had to in the past, and she ends up breaking up with him first.
She stabs him in the face with a fork.
Yeah, and
a plastic fork.
And he gets really like depressed because he's going through a breakup, and she was
this great white buffalo.
Yeah, and he puts on like his all these clothes and stuff, and it turns out that the overcoat that he wore, like the long kind of duster jacket, was the same jacket he wore in Say Anything.
I was going to say,
when he was holding up the
it looks really familiar.
Yeah, like that was all very specific because I think like this movie happened in a year where John Cusack had like his most iconic 80s movies come out, and so he wanted to kind of like do a callback to that.
That's nice. That's a nice little nod.
Mm-hmm. And this movie also has the best titular line I've ever seen in a film.
Titular?
Titular.
That's a big word, Kadish.
Yes.
Like, as in title?
Yeah, as in
title, not as in 80s tits.
Is that the word of the day?
Yeah, titular.
But the moment where Craig Robinson looks in the camera and says, it's like a hot tub time machine. And then he just deadpans in the camera, like breaks that fourth wall. It's like, so good.
We got to do a subject podcast where any movie that breaks the fourth wall, that would be fun.
That's a good one.
And Chevy Chase, we haven't talked about him.
Yeah, Chevy Chase was the hot tub time machine repairman who keeps just like disappearing. He was
like the gatekeeper of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he's like the trope of like the wise, like kind of metaphysical being who is kind of like there to guide the heroes.
Yeah.
And they keep playing off that where like everything that Chevy Chase says in this movie can be taken as like instructions on time travel.
Yeah.
But it's so like obscure that like,
there was one time where he was telling this girl was at a cigarette machine, kind of like a cigarette vending machine.
Yeah.
And he's like, you really don't need to do that. And she kind of looks at him all weird. And then the guy comes and interrupts him. They have a scene together. And then he just like disappears. And you see the girl still standing there trying to get the cigarettes out of the machine. It was just his appearance and disappearance is what the gag was for his character, because it was so frustrating to like, you're trying to get a hold of this guy because they wanted to fix the time machine. They knew he was the one who was going to do it. But every time they try to get a hold of him, he's just gone.
Yeah.
Well, it's a play off those mentors who like give the heroes like just enough advice, but never straight out tell them what they need to do.
Yeah.
And like,
it's very frustrating.
Yeah. And every like all four of the crew members in this movie are just like, they get so pissed off. They're like, dude, just tell us. like you obviously know what's going on here. And he's like, I do know what's going on here. You got a malfunctioning hot tub.
Yeah. He's like, what did he say about the thing? He's like, it's got some like weird gooey like stuff stuck in it or whatever.
The Chernobyl.
Yeah. Thought it was
Chernobyl.
Yeah. This movie had comedy, had boobs, had action.
It was it's
got everything you need.
Yep.
But the thing I like most about it is like, so if all of us traveled back in time, we'd probably do what these guys did, where it's like Craig Robinson's character. He always regretted kind of bombing at his like little, concert that happened during that summer. And when he goes back in time, he just steals a
song from the future,
Black Eyed Peas song from the future, and sings it, and everyone's just like, "Oh, this is amazing!"
Yeah,
So like they use their knowledge of the future to kind of like get a leg up on the past and become like cooler people.
That's the big reveal at the end. Yeah, that's the big reveal at the end is that Lou stays behind after he sends everybody into the hot tub once it's fixed, and they go back to present day. He stays behind because he realizes he's happier and he can make a lot of changes in his life that would lead him down a better path. And so when they get into the present day and they find out that Google's name has been changed to Lugal, like basically Lou is just like
taking over the world,
invested in all these huge companies, and he's become like a multi-billionaire. He's like, I'm over here on my yacht. Yeah. And he's got some $1 billion yacht. He's playing around with he's got his kid. It was Jacob. I can't remember what happens to Jacob. Jacob shows up and he's like, his life is completely different.
It's in Motley Lou.
Yeah.
well, so Lou and they say like Lugal, really? And he's like, oh, it's just a little multi-billion-dollar, side project I did after the band broke up. And they're like, you were in a band? He's like,
my real passion.
Yeah, my real passion is music. And then like the whole, like over the credits, throughout the movie, like Lou is just obsessed with Motley Crue. And so like he's just singing this Motley Crue song like throughout the entire movie.
And even when he was trying to kill himself, he was singing Home Sweet Home.
Yeah. And so at the end of the movie, it's revealed that Lou started up Motley Crue, but called it Motley Lou. And he recruited like Nikki Sixx and like basically like everyone but the lead singer from Motley Crue, Vince Neil. Yeah. And so like he was Vince Neil basically. And he became this famous rock and roll star. And it was a great gag. It was really good.
And like all of the like behind the scenes shots of actual like concerts and stuff, they like reshot and put Lou in.
And I think Lou has like one of the best lines in the movie where he's in the hospital and he's like, I didn't try to kill myself. Okay, if I was going to kill myself, I would have done it right. Shotgun to the dick.
It's Matt's favorite part.
I love that line. It's such a good line.
All right. Final thoughts on Hot Tub Time Machine. Matthew Vader, recommended for our listeners. Go check it out.
It's a great movie.
Favorite part?
Fun. I don't know. It's just a good movie. It's fun.
Boobs.
Favorite part? Boobs. Copy. Jude, always. Favorite part? And would you recommend it?
I love the part when Craig Robinson is killing it on stage and he like does that backflip and he's like, and running. I love that part. It just gets me. I love it. I recommend it.
Right on.
Yeah, the music in this movie is phenomenal as well. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think my favorite part was Lou having sex with Jacob's mom. He's just like yelling like these
random names,
random words as he's like orgasming, and everyone's just sitting outside, just like cringing as they hear him having sex. It's just so funny. And then like after it's all said and done, like she's just like, I feel pregnant.
I think my favorite part, anything with John Cusack, he's a favorite of mine. But besides that, I think the surprise cameo by Sebastian Stan, like I totally forgot he was in this movie.
It wasn't a cameo. He wasn't famous when this movie was made.
Okay.
Like he was just cast.
Yeah. Okay. So my favorite, like now famous, but then wasn't cast member would be Sebastian Stan as the ski resort douchebag.
I had to point out to Jude, I was like, you recognize that guy? She's like, no.
Yeah. He was young, like super young.
A lot less buff too.
Yeah. A lot less buff. But I love that, and I love the Red Dawn references and all that stuff. It was cool. This is a great movie, a lot of fun. I wouldn't dive too deep into the time travel logic because it kind of falls apart, but that's kind of what makes the movie.
But as a time travel movie, it works really well. And I think, like, if you look at the sequel to this movie, the sequel wasn't very good.
There's a sequel?
Yeah.
Hot Tub Time
Machine.
It's called Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
how original.
And it's not good. It really isn't.
Does it have the same cast, or is it just like
everyone but John Cusack came back?
No, that's why it's terrible. All right, moving on. But before we do, I wanted to remind all the listeners out there that you guys can go to saltynerdclub.com. That takes you straight to our Patreon page where you can subscribe, pick a tier, give us some cheddar, and we will, in return, offer you some cool prizes, T-shirts, stickers, and also exclusive content that you guys get to pick what you want us to talk about. We contact our Patreons on the weekly basis and say, hey, what do you guys want to talk about this week? And we record an episode just for you guys. So consider going to saltynerdclub.com and supporting the podcast. Thanks. Moving on to Matthew Vader's pick, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Excellent.
Bodacious.
They never say bodacious.
They do.
I don't think
they say bogus.
Bogus?
Quit making shit up.
I don't know. Come on. This is my first time ever seeing this.
Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah. I've seen it. Like I've seen parts of this movie.
This is when we realize that Salty's like a little kid.
Yeah, I am compared to you old folks. I've seen like bits and pieces and segments of this movie throughout, watching other movies and learning about where references come from.
This was the first time I'd seen this movie in quite some time.
And I didn't like 2/3 of it.
Yeah, it didn't age
This
super
is one of
great.
Kadish's favorites.
I bet.
I love this movie.
I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I was kind of like bored with it until like the end. The ending was made the whole movie worth it. Like when they got on stage. But we'll talk about that.
You
in a
like
minute.
the presentation?
Did you get Kadish's shirt? Do you get it?
I didn't read it yet. What does it say? Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you have a shirt
I
for
do.
literally everything?
Every movie, yes.
I might need to recreate
preposterous.
that shirt because that's a freaking dope shirt.
I bought him that shirt.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have a Wild Stallions T-shirt, but I thought it was a little bit too on the nose for today.
Wow.
Plus, you had just worn it the
Yeah,
other day.
yeah, plus it's dirty.
It was in the laundry.
So, Vader, why did you pick this movie? And why don't you tell
Because it was the first one that had time travel in it that I could think of after Jude stole my other pick.
Sorry, friend.
So
That's literally how it happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was. Oh, you want to pick Hot Tub Time Machine? All right, Bill and Ted.
that's it. That's exactly how it happened.
So, is this like an old favorite? Because you say you haven't seen it in a while.
I hadn't seen it in a long time, probably over 10 years ago. Yeah.
It's an old favorite of yours, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic.
Yeah, young Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun. There's so many today, even like pop culture references and stuff that go back to this movie.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's just a fun. It was just a fun kind of. Let's see how this movie has aged kind of experience for me this time. So
Yeah, as a first time like viewer of this movie, I was more interested in the now famous people that are in this movie more than I was interested in the movie. And I was like, hey, I recognize that person. Hey, I recognize that person. Like seeing George Carlin show up as like the time traveler guru guy, Rufus. For a minute, I didn't think it was him. I was watching. I'm like, is that it? Like sometimes it looked just like George Carlin, and then for some other reason, it like I don't know, his face changed or
Because he put sunglasses on.
he put sunglasses on. I was like, who is that guy?
Did he put a toothpick in his mouth and was completely unrecognizable?
Jackie Daytona.
Jackie Daytona.
Call back.
Call back to previous.
I
episodes.
I keep going back to how dumb Keanu Reeves is in this
Oh my
movie.
gosh, dude.
This is so funny. Whoa.
Dude, the Southern California vibe is like real strong in this
It's
movie.
real thick.
We still drive by when we go to LA a couple of times a year. We drive by the sign that says San Dimas or whatever. It's like, what? Bill and Ted's. Let's go.
The part where Sigmund Freud is analyzing Ted.
Oh yeah,
He's like on the couch at the end, and,
Yeah.
and Keanu Reeves just sits up and he's like, whoa.
that's where that gift
That's where,
comes from.
yeah, that's that meme.
Yeah, it's funny. I bet you like a bunch of people who use that GIF don't even know what it's from. Like I knew where it was from, but I didn't know the context of it. Now watching this, I was like, that's a GIF on Twitter. It's so weird. I'm so young.
I remember after this movie came out, everybody was going around doing the guitar lick.
the air guitar. Yeah.
It's like, dude.
Yeah, like people actually adopted the language from this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Like when I was growing up, we never used the words like dude or like excellent or like any of that stuff. But like after seeing this movie, like kids just start talking that way.
Yeah.
I still call people dude
Yeah.
all the time. I think it kind
Every
of started
day.
more with like Fast Times in this movie.
Well, it was,
Somebody
yeah,
needs
it
to
was
set
a-
the stage of this movie before we get too deep
it was a
into it.
surfer
Seriously,
thing.
that's a weird stage to
So the
set.
stage, Ted and Bill and Ted have a history report they have to write, or they're going to fail high school.
Which would devastate the world.
Ted's going to get shipped off to military school, and they have to keep the guys together because they write a song in the future that brings the entire population together, as in their band Wild Stallions. Currently, though, they can't even play a guitar, and so.
Before I forget, there was that circle logic that they had. Like, well, we got to learn how to play in order to make a killer video.
No, dude, what we need is Eddie Van Halen
to make
to make a killer video.
Yeah, killer video.
But we can't get Eddie Van Halen if we don't know how to play.
Maybe it's time we get Eddie Van Halen.
that circle logic, I feel like is the exact conversation that me and Kadish have about the YouTube thumbnails.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we got to have killer thumbnails to get a good audience. Like, no, we got to get an audience before we can have killer thumbnails. Like, no, bro.
I never said that.
You guys in your thumbnails fight needs to
It's
stay
ridiculous.
off the air. Okay.
Like, he's stifling my creativity.
So anyway,
Make it plain.
so they have to go back in time. Rufus comes back from the past or from the future to help give them the tools they need to go
Which is
back
a
in time to
time-traveling-
kidnap historical figures to bring them to the future to do a history presentation in front of the school so they can pass history class.
Right on.
So that's the premise of the movie. Really, that's it.
Very simple premise.
Very
Yeah.
simple.
I have a question.
Yes.
What happened to Bill's real mother?
Doesn't matter.
Dude, that was the most awkward freaking scene.
That's my favorite.
That's my mom. That's what is this? Shut up, Ted. Shut up, Ted.
Your dad's going to go for it in your room.
Yeah, I like how Ted's just like, remember when I asked your mom out to prom? Hey, remember when we were freshmen, your mom was a senior? Shut up, Ted.
Dude, that is the creepiest freaking thing in this movie. Where it, like,
Yeah.
his dad is
Dad,
like
the pedophile.
boinking the freaking 18-year-old high school dropout.
She's probably 19 or 20
Maybe.
at this point. But they've clearly been married for a while.
She didn't drop out.
Oh, that's right. She cried. Well,
Yeah, and Bill keeps calling her Missy. Oh, sorry, mom.
Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. So funny.
And and at the end, he's like Freud asked him if he wants to be analyzed, and he's like, "No, I just got a minor Oedipal complex. It's all good."
I put together like a whole side story in my head about this whole
tell us.
relationship. Like, I think that Bill's mom either ran off or died, and Bill's dad was alone for a long time. And then I think that Missy was like tutoring Bill in something, and that's how the father like saw her, and then he started banging her, and now they're married.
Yeah, Jude put way more thought into this than
Yeah, I think that's more thought than anybody's ever put
I
into
needed
that.
I needed to make it make sense.
That's legit. Because I was really weirded out by that, to be honest with you. I was
Yeah,
watching,
like what was Bill's dad doing? Hanging
that-
out at the school?
That
No.
like wink and a nod when he's
Yeah.
like, "Here, guys, go get dinner. It's
Yeah.
on me." And he like
Closes the
creepily
door.
closes the door.
And the
she's
look
just
on her
Oh my
face?
god!
Yeah.
it was super
It was
creepy.
so like out of a Billy Idol
like-
video.
This old man's going to take advantage. I mean,
and she's trying
like-
so hard to be like the traditional mom.
Yeah.
Like she'll come into Bill and Ted's room and like she'll put down like a plate of cookies and they're just staring at her cleavage the whole time.
Yeah, and then the dad comes in from behind and he's staring at her ass.
Yeah, dude, that was a
can we quit? Can we not cancel Bill and Ted?
no. I'm not. I found it like weird. It was really weird. I didn't like that part. It was kind of
That's my favorite part.
That's your favorite part? Oh, I didn't like it. I was like, this is a
The
little
look
bit.
on her face as the dad is closing the door was so, I'm gonna get it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, that. I don't know, man.
This movie also made me realize that in the 80s they were not shy about using the F word a lot
Yeah.
because it gets dropped in this movie too.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, so Bill thought Ted had died and Ted shows back up to rescue him.
Yeah.
And they hug each other because they're so happy that,
They're
see
alive.
each other again.
Yeah.
And then like they instantly pull back and they're like, like they say like the F
See,
word.
we can't even say it on
Yeah,
the
we can't
podcast.
even say it.
It makes me so annoyed.
But then they're immediately happy again after they've kind of established that they're both not gay.
I don't remember that part. I remember him. I remember
was
him
in
getting
the-
stabbed. Which again, I don't remember how he didn't get stabbed. Like I remember, like he falls down the staircase because they're like play fighting.
Well, nobody knows. He fell out of the armor.
Yeah.
He fell out of the armor.
Yeah,
Is that what
the
it was?
armor that was obviously strapped to him.
Fell out of the armor, dude.
So
That was a good moment. Like when they were recreating Star Wars. He's like,
Yeah.
"You're totally not my dad, bro."
I'll never rule the galaxy with you.
That was funny. They were
There's
sword
a
fighting.
lot of cool stuff in this movie.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
know what's interesting is that this movie is actually a pretty sophisticatedly written like film, like all things considered.
It does hold together pretty well. I was trying to pay attention to how the time travel worked, and I couldn't really. It doesn't matter. I couldn't pick out any like obnoxious flaws.
It's the fixed timeline thing that we talked about, where everything that happens already happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were always supposed to go back in time and do this stuff,
and that's why they saw each other at the beginning of the movie. Come back and tell them, listen to Rufus.
Hey Ted, give my love to the princesses.
Yeah.
The princesses?
What are you talking about? I love that part too, where you see that part later on when it's from the other perspective, and they're like, "Wow, that conversation makes a lot more sense now, dude."
But yeah, so like the sophistication of how like they kind of deal with the time travel in this, like it's obviously ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the logic of it's pretty sound.
works.
It works. And the thing I love about this movie, because I remember watching it when I was a kid, and like I actually learned a lot about history from this movie.
Oh, I was thinking towards the end of this movie when I started to like it more, I was like, this is like something that a teacher, like a substitute teacher in history class, who'd be like, all right, guys, we don't have a lesson plan for today because your teacher called off, so we're just going to watch Bill and Ted.
Yeah, the made-for-TV version.
But because of this movie, like I learned about like who Freud was and who Socrates was and who Joan of Arc was.
Socrates.
Still call them Socrates today.
And like all these like historical figures when I was a kid, I had no idea like they even existed.
Yeah.
And this movie kind of introduced me to them and made me like aware of them. So I feel like this movie has like that educational aspect. Like I never knew who like I never cared about Napoleon. Like I had heard of him.
Oh, I love that character.
Yeah. And it's funny because
what'd they call him? Little Piggy or something like that?
Ziggy. So the writers of this script, their names are Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. I actually follow Ed Solomon on Twitter. He's been posting stuff about the new Bill and Ted movie. But these guys, they were kind of like, they were improv comics. And they actually created the characters of Bill and Ted in improv. And the way it would work is like they were like these kind of valley dude bros, you know, who would use big words, but they'd sound like complete idiots. And in their improv things, they would just have the audience ask them questions and they'd be like, well, actually. And then they're like, that's a very astute observation, Ted. and so like this kind of Bill and Ted sketch that they had became really popular. And they were like, you know, why don't we try making a movie out of this? And so like they sat down in a cafe somewhere or a coffee shop and like wrote out their entire concept for the movie by hand on like napkins and stuff. And originally Bill and Ted was going to be more of like a sketch comedy, like kind of Kentucky Fried Movie style film. And they came up with this concept where Bill and Ted get a time machine and they go throughout time and inadvertently cause some of history's greatest disasters, like the Titanic sinking and like the Hindenburg blowing up. And when they were like telling like a friend or like one of the guys' dads about their ideas, he was like, you know, that time travel idea, that could be a movie in and of itself. And they were like, hey, you know what? You're right. And so they kind of shifted focus and made Bill and Ted more of around the time travel stuff. And basically the whole thing just kind of came out of them doing these characters as like, you know, improv stand-up type stuff that evolved into this, you know, zeitgeist classic of a time travel film. So.
I just wanted to mention before I forget, one of the princesses was Diane Franklin.
From Better Off Dead.
From Better Off Dead, who I have a huge crush on. Yeah. And I didn't know she was in this movie.
Were you stoked when you saw her?
I was super stoked. Yeah. I was like, oh, there she is.
Yeah.
White buffalo.
Great white buffalo.
Great white buffalo.
So one of the interesting things about this movie, so it was made for like a budget of like $9 million. It was like super low budget.
I believe that.
And originally...
Why was it a telephone booth? Can somebody explain that to me?
Yeah, I'll explain to you in a second. So originally they wanted to get like a big name actor to play the character of Rufus, you know, and they were really kind of angling towards Sean Connery.
That would have been cool.
From Highlander?
Yeah. But they couldn't afford any of these big name actors. And so like they realized that they're like, you know, like all these guys that we're going after, none of them are comedians. And I think the director or someone had worked with Carlin on like a previous film.
Like Kevin Smith worked with Carlin too, right? Because I know I've heard Carlin did an interview
they're homies.
Where he was like, I like doing these small budget like comedy movies.
Yeah,
and he enjoys the camaraderie of doing it with directors.
Yeah,
and actors.
So they went to George Carlin. They're like, "Would you be in this movie?" And he was like, "Sure."
Yeah,
and so that's how we got Rufus. And it's kind of funny because like the character of Rufus isn't really comedic.
No, not at all.
But you know,
does he become comedic later? I feel like in like the sequels or something, he changes up a little bit.
No, I don't even think he's in Bogus Journey.
I don't remember.
Be excellent to each other.
Yeah.
Bogus Journey is the one with the devil in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So originally, the time machine was going to be a van, and they wanted to have Bill and Ted drive the van around and, you know, go and, you know, throughout time. And in fact, the original title of the movie was like Bill and Ted's Time Van or something like that.
Mm.
And this movie came out after Back to the Future, and they were worried that, you know, it was the time traveling car was too similar to the Back to the Future DeLorean. So they were like, well, what can we have instead of a car? And they're like, well, Doctor Who has a police phone booth that he travels through time in. And no one in America cares about Doctor Who.
That's true.
So why don't we just steal that?
Except for Nick.
But we're going to make
Yeah,
it.
we're going to hear it from them.
Yeah, but we're going to make it a phone booth instead of a police box. So like that's kind of like where they.
It was like an LA.
I did kind of think it was
made out
funny
of
that
glass.
they stuffed like 12 people.
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
it's infinite.
Yeah.
Yeah, the space inside. It's just like the Doctor Who thing, right? Like it looks really small once you get in there.
Except
It's
they
like
all look like they're crammed in.
Yeah, they are crammed in, and in
And
fact,
then when it goes like
vertical.
horizontal,
They're all sticking out of it like a canoe, going through the time stream.
yeah.
and both Alex Winters and Keanu have gone on record as saying like they hated doing the scenes where they were like in the booth and it was on a gimbal. Because, like they called it the death box.
I can imagine.
Because they were all like crammed in there and they were like having to act, and it was so claustrophobic and hot and like dangerous, and they hated it. But it was actually kind of interesting how they got cast, because I think that the director kind of settled on Keanu first because he had auditioned, and this was around the time when like that whole generation of young actors was coming up in Hollywood. It was like Keanu and River Phoenix and like that kind of era.
what had Keanu done before this?
I don't think he'd done anything really.
Okay, this was his
Yeah,
first major
this
movie.
is like the first thing I can think of him in.
Yeah, same here.
And I know Alex Winters had done Lost Boys
yeah.
a couple years before this, so he had kind of a name to him.
That's another one I haven't seen.
You'd probably hate it because it has kids in it.
I'm going to make him watch it in August.
Does it really have kids in it?
Yeah, well,
Like young kids? Like
Yeah.
Goonies kids?
Yeah, it's
Like
it's the two Coreys.
I thought it
when
was
they were young.
I just remember what's his face from Jack Bauer.
This isn't a
Kiefer
Lost Boys
Sutherland.
talk.
Kiefer Sutherland. That's the only person I know of from that movie. He was like a teenager in that movie.
Let's
though.
not get off the rails.
So anyway, the
That's
director
next month, right? August Bites.
the director had kind of settled on Keanu, and so they were looking for people who had chemistry with Keanu. And it turns out like Keanu and Alex Winters met in a line for McDonald's. And they kind of like hit it off because they had a lot of the same interests. Like they were both in a band. They both liked music and stuff like that. And so when they auditioned, like the directors had all the actors read for both parts. So they both like read for like Bill and Ted. And the characters were kind of interchangeable at that time because they hadn't really kind of worked out the details of the characters. But they just had such good chemistry together that they were like, okay, I think we found our Bill and Ted. And originally the screenwriters had kind of envisioned the characters as like these scrawny 14-year-old guys with like bell bottoms and rocker t-shirts and stuff. And once they cast Keanu and Winters, they were like, these guys are too cool. Like we can't write Bill and Ted the way we wanted to write them originally. So they had to tailor the characters to each actor. And I think Keanu made Ted like a lot more like, whoa, kind of like absent-minded and
Spacey.
yeah. And Bill was like, Alex Winters made him a little
bit more intelligent.
Yeah. But the great thing about this movie, I think, and the reason it holds up so well, in my opinion, is that the characters are just so sincere. They're like almost idiot savants. Where like,
Yeah.
like
They're lovable.
they're very like resourceful, and they work well together, and they're very good friends. And there's nothing like kind of malicious or mean about them. And I just love this concept that these guys kind of put all their best qualities into this music that ends up changing the world. It eliminates war, famine, disease. It brings
Unites the world, man.
it brings extraterrestrials to the planet and allows people to communicate across like boundaries. Like even animals are changed by this music because their music puts everything in harmony.
Yeah.
And there's this fantastic scene in the movie where they accidentally go to the future and
Wow, what do they say? Oh, the music in here is like
Excellent.
yeah, they play quite excellent music, and like everyone from the future are just like, it's
Bill
you.
and Ted. Yeah.
and Bill and Ted don't know that they're supposed to be like these famous guys quite yet. And so they're like, I think they want us to say something. They're like, and Bill's like, what should I say? And, yeah. And so
He does his pose.
yeah, he does the Socrates pose. And,
Be excellent to each other. Yeah,
and that's such a great philosophy too. Like,
What does Ted say?
party on, party on.
and like just this notion the philosophy of the movie is just like be excellent to each other. Like I think that's just such a universally great.
It's the golden
message.
rule, right?
Yeah.
Do unto others what you do to yourself. Yeah,
and have a good time doing it.
Party on, bro.
And it's funny because like throughout like the movie, this advanced futuristic society, they like the way they greet and say goodbye to each other is just party on, dudes. And it's all based off of Ted's like line at that moment. But the music in that scene and like just like the harmony and when everyone comes out and the music kind of swells and they just start doing like the air guitar,
Got the guitar solo.
and, like it was just like so beautifully done. Like I turned to Jude, I was like, this is my favorite scene in the movie.
Okay, I was going to ask you what your favorite part was. That's it.
Well, that's my favorite scene just because of everything it represents. But my all-time favorite part of the movie is when they use their time travel logic to get out of problems.
Damn it, you stole mine.
well, if you want to go through it, I'll let you. But like the part where they're doing the jailbreak, and they realize like after all this is over, if we take the time machine, go back in time, steal your dad's keys, and leave them right here. I was like whenever I saw that, growing up and even when I watch it now, I'm like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it makes absolute perfect sense. Like I would be doing that all day long.
Yeah, exactly. That's like when they figured out how the mechanics of time travel worked, and at the end they were like, we can use this to get us out of our jam. And that was like, dude, you're the one who stole your dad's keys. It's like, I was like, oh my God, that's freaking brilliant. Like it worked so well. And I love remember trash can.
The trash can just falls from the ceiling. And I also like that Napoleon gets his own like side story.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Movie.
He's completely
because
flushed out.
Originally the writers had planned to do that with Hitler. Like they go back in time and accidentally
would not have aged well.
Oh no, that would have been cruel.
Yeah.
God.
So like when they were developing the script, they're like, well, maybe Hitler's not the best idea.
You can't really redeem Hitler.
But they're like, who's someone like Hitler? And they're like, well, Napoleon. And they're like, okay, let's do Napoleon. And it's just, but it's kind of funny because they leave Napoleon under the care of Ted's little brother. What's his name? Steve, something like that. So while they're traveling back in time, Ted's little brother is supposed to look after Napoleon. And at a certain point, he just ditches Napoleon because he's a dick. And when Bill and Ted come back, they catch up with their brother. Like, what do you mean you ditched Napoleon? He's like, the guy was a dick.
Yeah.
And I could just picture that instead of Napoleon it being Hitler, where the guy's like, Hitler was a dick, man. I didn't want to hang out with that guy.
And he was like, it was funny too. And they were like, where would you go?
Oh, the water park.
Let's go. What was the name of that place?
The water park was called Waterloo. Which, if you know anything about Napoleon, that was like, his final defeat was at the Battle of Waterloo.
I watched this movie with my wife, and that was one of the scenes she like started laughing out loud in when he was running around this water park with all these kids in it.
Yeah.
He's pushing them all aside, getting them out of the way, and he's running around in a t-shirt with his ass hanging out. Yeah. It was pretty funny. It was like,
and it's funny because they didn't have the budget to actually rent out that water park. So like if you watch that scene, all the people in the background, they're just regular water park customers as they're shooting that movie. So like you can see them like looking at the camera and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of funny because like they stretched their budget as far as they could go, and they actually ended up shooting in Italy for like a week or something like that to get like the castle shots and things like that. But
there's also the scene where Napoleon goes to O'Farrell's, the ice cream parlor, and I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but that's a real place. And I've taken on that ice cream challenge more than once.
Have you really?
As a kid, yeah. It's like the big giant bowl,
Pig.
and I don't remember the Ziggy Piggy. I think that was part for the movie.
The guys who served them, those were the writers of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I was just thinking in this COVID era that we live in, 6 people with spoons going into the same big bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And Napoleon's in there like scooping out the slurp, eating it with his hand at the end. It's like, you're like, that's never going to work now.
And the funny thing is, it was Neapolitan ice cream he was eating.
Yeah.
The fish out of water moment where he was like, everybody was making fun of him and he didn't understand why. He was just like looking at everybody like, what's the matter? I'm just eating my ice cream.
Yep.
Vader, do you have any favorite moments of this movie?
Favorite moments?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I just thought it was a good movie. You always ask me for my favorite moments, and I just...
Well, like me and him, we both... He likes the...
Was there any moment that stood out to you that when you think of this movie, that's the scene that pops into your head?
For mine, it's going to be
I don't know, not really.
the creepy dad with the new mom, and then the
whenever I think of this movie, it's always Bill and Ted doing the guitar thing with their hands. And,
excellent.
Yeah. So
Right on.
Yeah,
Jude?
and I do love every time they do the air guitar. They always play like the guitar riff.
Sometimes
over it.
they do, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do it themselves. They make the sound with their mouths, and they're doing it. And then other times it's like an overdubbed musical instrument.
Well, it's kind of like they hear it in their
they hear it in their
and
heads.
as the audience, we're hearing it.
it's like, it was you. I don't think you were a little kid when this movie came out, right?
What year?
Or if you were
88?
even around, right?
I was being born.
People in like school would actually do that to each other.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Oh, dude!" Yeah. It didn't last
air guitar.
It didn't last very long, but
No, that
it was
wasn't my
fun.
era. I definitely didn't do that.
But there was a
Remember,
lot of dudes. What's up, dude? Hey, dude. How you doing, dude?
I mean that's a
It's
lasting thing.
I to this day use dude in 20 different versions.
I call my 6-year-old dude.
Yeah, me too.
I can have an entire
Dude,
yeah.
Dude.
you're not being excellent right now.
That's one of those words that you can have a full conversation with another person, and the only word you use is dude, back and forth to each other, and know what the other person means.
I also like how whenever they talk to each other, they always refer to each other by name.
Yeah.
It's like, that was a very astute observation, Ted. Thank you, Bill.
Bill.
Shut up, Ted. Bill, your mom's hot.
I love that he called her cute
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole movie. He never like made it too overtly sexual. It was never like, I'd bang your mom, or your mom's hot, or your mom has great tits, or anything like that. It was always just like, dude, your mom's hot, or your mom's cute.
Yeah, whenever Bill was kind of like starting to lust after his mom, Ted would always be like, "It's your mom, dude." And just snap Bill right out of it.
That's so weird. All right, Jude, do you have any favorite moments in this movie? Something that you really connect to or think of?
Yeah,
when
no,
you
I
think of
already
this
said
movie?
it.
You did?
Yeah. It's the scene where the older dad and the young mom are about to do it in his room.
Okay, it's my
And
least favorite moment.
It's the door closing scene
Yeah.
where the dad is like about to give it to her, and she knows she's about to get it. I love it.
That's so creepy.
It's so creepy. I love it.
I also love how all the historical figures like end up becoming like such unique characters. Like, even though they're such one-offs, like Socrates like becomes like a real like part of the crew, and Billy the Kid's kind of like the ringleader.
Yeah, I remember I think one of the things that I just remembered when you said that was Beethoven playing with like the
Casio
keyboards, and he's
keyboard.
like jamming out in the mall.
And Genghis Khan with the bat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a legit. Can you imagine if real Genghis Khan came to the future
he would
and found an
murder
aluminum bat? That would change history. With that thing, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, and just like Joan of Arc being like a big jazzercise.
Yeah.
Napoleon discovering his love for water slides. And I like how at the end he's going over his invasion plans for invading Russia with Bill and Ted. And Bill,
It's not going to work, bro.
And Ted's just like, I don't think that's going to work. And Napoleon just gets incensed and like throws everything off the table.
That was a lot of good moments.
Even like Abraham Lincoln,
He's the show
Party
closer.
on, dudes!
4 and 7 minutes ago.
And this is just like a really feel good movie.
Yeah, it really is.
Even when they get in trouble in the Middle Ages and they're gonna be executed, it's like put them in the Iron Maiden, and they're just
Excellent.
Iron Maiden.
they're like, execute them, and he's like, bogus.
I do love that Jesse the Kid. Is it Jesse the Kid, right?
Billy the Kid.
Billy the Kid. Jesse. Who's the other guy?
Jesse Ventura.
There's the title of the show.
Jesse the Kid.
Jesse the Kid. Yeah.
There was another famous cowboy. His name is Jesse. Isn't
Oui,
it?
senor.
Oui, senor.
Jesse James.
Jesse James. That's what I'm thinking of. Billy the Kid. I like that. Like all the historical figures, once they get to know Bill and Ted, they're all like 100% on board.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's go on an adventure, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. It's so
Billy
funny.
the Kid like ropes Sigmund Freud.
And there's a great scene in the mall where Billy the Kid and Socrates are trying to pick up on these girls.
Yes.
And Sigmund Freud just like comes out of nowhere, and he's holding this phallic corn dog. and as he's talking to the girls, it becomes this like erect penis type thing. And
Yeah, I hadn't picked up on that until I saw it this time.
It's very subtle.
Yeah.
Like teenagers aren't going to pick that up, but like once you know who Freud is, becomes, and then like Billy the Kid and Socrates get pissed at Freud because he like scared the girls off. Just like
Socrates calls him a geek.
There's a lot of good moments in this movie.
Like just one good moment after another. Like I can't think of anything about this movie that I dislike really.
It's just the creepy pedo dad. That's about it. Though.
All the gags land. It's a very well written movie. The time travel logic is very interesting. It's just a fun film, and I don't like the sequel, but I feel like this movie is close to like a perfect 80s comedy. I love it.
I think I've seen the sequel, and I think that's the only one I've seen. I thought that was just the
sequel
one.
The sequel is too dark for me.
Yeah, it did get dark, but I did enjoy it.
I don't really remember anything about the sequel.
They remember die and they go to hell.
Yeah, I just remember them. I remember them playing chess with the devil or something like that.
No, it's death.
Death. Oh, death. Okay, I remember that. I remember thinking,
and they keep beating him.
Yeah,
that keeps like best 2 out of 3, best 5 out of 3. Yeah.
We'll talk about the sequel at some point. But that's it for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And before we move on to our final topic, I just wanted to remind everybody that you guys can go to saltynerdvideo.com. That takes you straight to our YouTube page. You can like and subscribe. Check out our video content there. We have all of our full-length podcasts available. Also, we have them cut up into short little segments for you guys to check out by topic. And I think, Kadish, you're working on a new style of our YouTube video, kind of change things up a little bit. What are you working on?
Yeah, trying to make it more visual, more visually appealing. Just we're trying out some new stuff. So any feedback anybody wants to give us on our videos,
yeah, for sure,
much appreciated, because we're trying to put up our audio content onto YouTube, and right now it's just kind of like stale. I think where we just put up like a still image with our like audio form for our voices and stuff like that, and so like it's not something that will keep you engaged visually. Like if you have it playing on in the background on YouTube, like that's one thing, but it's not something like if you're sitting there watching YouTube videos, it's not something that's stimulating visually. So we're trying out some new stuff to try to get it to the point where it's fun to watch.
Yeah. So if you watch or listen to this podcast primarily on YouTube, don't forget to comment. Let us know what you want to see. If you want to see some changes or if you want some topics brought up, let us know. We're always on the lookout for constructive criticism and some good feedback from the community. So that's saltynerdvideo.com. If you're listening on iTunes or Google Play, check us out over there and help support the podcast. Next topic today is Matthew Kadish's pick, which is 12 Monkeys, starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. Why don't
you can guess which one mine was. You had Hot Tub Time Machine, Bill and Ted's, and 12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys. Vastly different from the other two.
a lot more of a serious time travel movie.
So why don't you tell us why you picked this and then set the stage for it? What's this movie all about?
Well, I wanted to pick a time travel movie that wasn't kind of like your standard time travel film. And I'm a big fan of Terry Gilliam, he was a former Monty Python troupe member. He was the guy who did all their animations, and he eventually kind of joined them as an actor. But he's also this very influential filmmaker. Like his stuff has kind of like shaped how certain filmmakers like do stuff. In fact, Bill and Ted, a big inspiration for Bill and Ted was Time Bandits, which was Terry Gilliam's like first like big movie. So like there were definitely like influences in other time travel films because of Terry Gilliam. And 12 Monkeys is a very kind of original time travel story. Basically, it's about a future, I believe it's like 2068 or something like that, or 2030, somewhere around there. And the world has been ravaged by this terrible disease, and it's forced everyone to kind of go underground and live in these like quarantined kind of bunkers.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah. And basically, like, this virus wiped out almost the entire population of Earth. 5 billion people died off of it. And because they had to go underground, now the surface is kind of ruled by animals. And basically, a group of scientists are trying to find a non-mutated form of the disease in order to formulate some type of vaccine or cure for it. because basically what happened was by the time they realized what the virus was, it had mutated beyond its original pure form, and there's no like pure enough strain to formulate some type of medication for it. So they decide that they're going to send volunteers back in time to try to find clues as to where the most pure specimen of this outbreak occurred.
Which was 1996 is when it first started, right?
Yeah. And so basically Bruce Willis, he's this prisoner in this like underground penitentiary, and they choose him as one of their volunteers to go back in time because he has very good memory. So his recall is good enough where they can give him instruction and it can survive the travel to the past and keep him all kind of on topic.
Yeah, because in this movie, time travel kind of takes its toll on the person who's traveling. It messes with your brain.
Yeah. So basically, Bruce Willis goes back in time and he's got to kind of unravel the mystery of like what this disease was and how it started. And in addition to that, there's this kind of love, like quasi-love story, and also this kind of circular, like kind of dream that he has where when he was a kid, he witnessed someone die in an airport, and he keeps having this recurring dream. And it's the only dream he ever has of this moment. And throughout the movie, we realize that it's not a dream, it's a memory. And this film, it was actually based on a short film called La Jetée. It's a French short film from the early 1960s. And it was part of the French New Wave, which is basically a movement within cinema where a group of artists basically started rebelling against kind of established Hollywood norms. And they would do stuff like nonlinear storytelling and play around with film formats and stuff like that. And La Jetée was basically, it was a story about how you can't escape time. And it was all done in still frames. So it was done in like still photographs and constructed into a movie with narration.
What year did that come out?
It was like, I want to say 61 or 62, something like that.
Oh, wow, that's weird. I'm going to have to check that out.
It's a 20-minute
short. Sounds weird enough to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's French, so it's going to be weird.
That's the one thing I'll talk about the movie in a minute. Go ahead, keep going.
So anyway, this film was based off of that, and it's basically about this guy who survives World War III, and he gets sent back in time to try to, find out what happened to cause World War III. And when he was a kid, he saw someone die, and then when he goes back in time, he falls in love with this woman who's been in his dreams, and then he realizes that like he's the guy who he saw get killed, and he dies, and so like that it's kind of like this weird circular time travel logic. And so if you look at 12 Monkeys, it's based off of this story, and they kind of made it like a little bit more detailed than the short film. But this is one of the few Terry Gilliam films where he didn't write the script, because he usually writes his own stuff. And but it's also like his kind of biggest, I'd say, Hollywood movie, because he had been kind of like an independent almost for most of his career up to this point. And it was kind of funny because when they cast the movie, so this was around the time where Bruce Willis's career was kind of resurging after Pulp Fiction, and he was trying to work with really big auteur directors, like kind of like Tarantino, So he decided to work with Terry Gilliam, and the reason that they cast him was he was willing to waive his acting fee, to do the movie. And so like he got paid on the back end as opposed to getting paid up front, so that saved on the budget. But this was also Brad Pitt's kind of like big movie as well, because he got nominated for an Oscar for this film. But when they cast him, he hadn't blown up yet. So like Terry Gilliam was actually like, I'm not sure if I want this actor in this role. But he was convinced to cast Brad Pitt, and it was kind of funny because like by the time the movie was finished, Interview with a Vampire had come out, and like a bunch of other Brad Pitt movies, and he was like the biggest star in Hollywood. Yeah, he was like the biggest star in Hollywood. And that instantly like shot the value of the movie up by like $20 million or something like that. And so like they added Brad Pitt into all like the marketing materials and stuff like that. So they had like Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, who at the time that this movie came out, which I believe was 97, these guys were like just huge stars. And so like it became this like kind of like big Hollywood movie. Even though Terry Gilliam isn't known for being like a Hollywood guy. In fact, his movie with Universal before this, it was this very influential film called Brazil, and he had a terrible experience with Universal on that movie. But I find that this film is very interesting because it's the fixed timeline thing. It's a story about how like everything that happened already happened.
Yeah, it's all based on because you did this, the consequences of that is this, and it's always been that.
And it's very interesting because Bruce Willis specifically states in the movie, he plays the character James Cole, where he's like, 5 billion people are dead. I can't save them. No one can. They're dead. It happened.
Yeah.
And so like the whole movie is just about the future trying to figure out what happened in the past. But the interesting thing about it is if you look at the events of the movie, everything that the future did caused the outbreak. Yeah. They were kind of like the architects of their own destruction. And it's a very deep movie when you start getting into the weeds with it, because like the more you analyze it, and the more you think about the time travel logic, the crazier it becomes. Yeah. And Gilliam, he's such an interesting director because he's one of these guys who has a very distinct visual style. He popularized the use of wide-angle lenses. Like he shoots most his entire movies in these wide angles, and he kind of used a special lens that it was new at the time.
It's a fisheye lens.
No, it's not a fisheye. It's actually it's a special lens that is as wide as a fisheye, but it doesn't have the distortion around the edges to make it fisheye. And it's actually called the Gilliam because he uses it in all of his movies. But the interesting thing is like, so he likes to shoot like at like kind of low angles or like off kilter angles with like,
Dutch. Oh my God.
Like Dutch
Don't even get me
angles.
started on the Dutch angles in this movie. It's such garbage.
It's like when the doctors are all
Jesus Christ. Enough with your artsy fartsy school freaking look at me, I can make a Dutch angle. The whole movie's shot at a 30-degree angle. It's ridiculous.
But Gilliam, that's his style. Like he was the type of guy who kind of popularized the whole kind of authoritarian and like post-industrial like futurism.
When did Alien 3 come out?
I don't know. But so like whenever you watch a Terry Gilliam movie, you know it's a Terry Gilliam movie just because his visual style is so distinct. And the interesting thing about this movie was that in the future, it's all based around like pre-1996 technology. So it's stuff that they scavenged and kind of put together. And so it looks like very kind of low-tech, steampunky, cobbled together stuff. Yeah. It's really cool. And Gilliam had this obsession with it. He was like, I want everything to look like it's inside of a condom. So like everyone's clothes have like one of those plastic layers on like the surface and stuff like that.
Okay, I got to get into this because he's been talking for 20 minutes. The story I felt like was a little bit predictable, but I think that might have been the point because it's all that circular, storytelling with this time travel kind of leads to the next step. And like, so I kind of like, once I figured out that's what they were going with, I knew what the story was going to be, and I just kind of lost interest. I was like, oh, okay, I already know. I know what's going to happen and because
this was your first watch, right?
Yes, first time ever seeing it. I'm like, okay, I know what's going to happen because they kind of lay it out for you that this is that type of time travel movie. I'm like, okay, whatever. I hated the visual style. Like I was watching, I'm like, what the heck? Enough with the Dutch angles. Like seriously, I said it like 10 minutes in. I'm like, okay, another Dutch angle. Oh look, another Dutch angle. Oh look, another Dutch angle.
I didn't know that was a term.
Oh yeah. I don't like if you use them, it's meant to make the audience feel discombobulated.
Yeah,
and give you the perspective.
So
of
it's that uncomfortable feeling you get from the angles of the movie the whole time.
Yes, yeah.
I felt the same way.
I hated it, and I'm okay with using that in very specific moments to emphasize something.
I know you're going to go on for another 20 minutes too, but I just want to say that to me, this is another one of those Kadish movies that I'm into it 20 minutes and I'm going to turn this shit off because I don't like it. But I remembered what happened last week after I did that. And you guys, it turned into be pretty good, even though it was kind of crap. Right. And I kept going and I finished it. And and I'd watched this movie. Let me rephrase it. I tried to watch this movie like 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and I don't think I made it through.
Yeah.
I don't think I did. I don't remember really, but I can't imagine myself back then finishing this movie. And I finished it this time, and I'm kind of glad I did because I got the whole thing, and it wasn't bad by the time I finished it up. I was happy to get finally gotten the whole story, but you're right. I don't dig the different angles. It's a super dark. I did appreciate Brad Pitt's performance. I thought he was really good in here.
He was good as a crazy
Bruce
person.
Willis was Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I didn't think he didn't really stand out to me very much.
And Madeline Stowe, I've never really been a big fan of hers, but
I was watching this movie and I'm like, enough, dude. We get it. You know how to hold your camera sideways. Like
I will say this. I will say if you're a movie fan, you should watch this movie. There's a lot of cool stuff in this movie, and it's very like the film student in Kadish is the guy that probably made us watch this movie.
Yeah.
For a reason,
Yeah.
you know?
It wasn't your friend.
And we're all like, oh God, another Kadish flick.
I can understand,
but
from a film perspective, I get it. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same thing with the Peter Jackson thing with Bad Taste. Like, I get it.
I'm never forgiving you for that.
This one, I did not appreciate nearly as much as Bad Taste. Like, Bad Taste, I knew it was what it was. And
I could watch this a dozen times.
This one had a budget behind it, so I felt like there was no excuse for it to look so shitty.
But Terry Gilliam's just weird.
Yeah.
He's a weird dude.
But that's what makes this movie so interesting is the fact that Terry Gilliam, he is such an auteur. Like there's a famous story in the shooting of this movie where there's that scene where Bruce Willis, he had just come out from the outside. He's going through decontamination and he's like drawing blood while he's like naked. And there's this like wide shot where there's a shadow of a hamster wheel and a hamster running on the wheel, like kind of projected on the background. And there was like this shot should have taken like maybe like, I don't know, an hour to get. And Terry Gilliam was so obsessed with the shadow of the hamster because the hamster wasn't performing as he wanted it to. Like it wasn't running on the wheel. So like they kept doing take after take to try to get the hamster shadow just right.
Is that why Bruce Willis is so pissed in this movie?
And it's something that like you don't even notice when you're watching the movie. But Terry Gilliam is such a stickler for details like that. And he's such a perfectionist that they spent like an entire day on that one shot trying to get the hamster wheel.
If I was a producer or whatever of this movie, I probably would have lost my mind.
I can handle that kind of mentality from like Kubrick movies. Like Kubrick's a freaking genius, and his visual style is amazing.
Well, some would argue Gilliam's a genius.
I don't think so. Like hearing that story, if it was a Kubrick movie, I'd be like, oh, okay, it's Kubrick like doing his wacky thing, right? But it comes out like a really great product at the end of the line. When I saw that, and you're telling me about this, I'm like, no, it wasn't worth it, dude.
To me, this is one of those movies that while it has its good stuff in it, it's a movie more for the Matts over here.
Yeah.
The guys that can appreciate people like, what's his name?
Terry Gilliam.
Terry Gilliam. You know, it's like for me, it was too much to process. I think to be able to really appreciate it. It's not my kind of movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
the other thing I really didn't like about this is it feels like other movies that I've seen that were made during this time, and maybe they were trying to mimic this movie, but it was like that late 90s grungy, everything's kind of shitty in the future vibe. Like Alien 3 had the same thing. Everybody's wearing basic rags. Everything's wet.
But that's kind of that's a staple of Gilliam films is that he kind of looks at like bureaucracy as the ultimate evils of society. And in fact, he made so like his most influential and famous film is Brazil. And it's kind of like he originally wanted to call that movie 1984 and a half. And it's basically just like this kind of industrial kind of complex thing where all the pipes and like the architecture and stuff like that is just overbearing on like the individual. And the thing about Gilliam, which makes him such an interesting filmmaker, and it goes back to his use of wide-angle lenses, is that he captures so much information in every shot, and you really get the sense of like the environments that the characters are in, and he always makes it so that the environments are either oppressive or terrible in some way, shape, or form, and because he shoots everything in a wide angle, the sets become characters in and of themselves, and he has. He I know you don't like him, but he had such a profound influence on so many like filmmakers and the way movies are made, because he was kind of the original rebel. Like when Hollywood was doing like the 90s blockbuster mentality, Terry Gilliam was off doing like his own thing and making these like really interesting movies, and other filmmakers would watch them and be like, oh wow, maybe I should incorporate some of this into my stuff.
I feel like, I mean, there has to be that person that takes that step in order for other people to follow. So I can appreciate that. But I feel like the people who followed him probably did a better job. Like these like quasi fisheye lens, like wide open shots. I was like, it was like information overload. There's too much. There has to be a focal point for the film. Otherwise I get lost.
But he specifically avoids those focal points. It
takes away from the film for me.
Well, I've heard interviews of him where he's like, I don't want people to know where to focus on the frame when they're watching my movies.
Sounds like a terrible idea.
Because, well, but the interesting thing about that philosophy is that when you rewatch his films, like you spot new things every time you watch them. And like stuff that you missed the first time around, like that hamster thing I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Like when you're first watching that movie, you're not going to notice that. But like,
here's the thing though with that argument. I know you find stuff every time you rewatch it. I'm not going to rewatch any of his movies.
Well, that's fine. But like 12 Monkeys, it's such a deep movie. Like I said, you can study like the time travel logic and look at all the scenes about and kind of deconstruct like, okay, like they actually caused like, you know, the ultimate release of this virus and stuff like you can go back and piece together these puzzles and then see different things. And the thing that I thought really kind of made this movie stand out from other time travel films is the question of the unreliable narrator, the like, you know, is Cole really insane or is this actually happening?
Yeah.
And so like it brings into the question the mental stability of the main character as to whether or not he's imagining all this stuff or if it's actually real.
The storyline,
and I love that stuff because you know you're watching it and it's like, is this all in his head or is it real? Like what's going on here?
I feel like if this storyline is very intriguing, and I agree with you, it's a really cool way they kind of lay out what's going to happen, and the time travel is really interesting. I just feel like the visual style and the way he shot this film with the overbearing Dutch angles and everything's like down looking up, like that for me, like
then you wouldn't like any Terry Gilliam.
It totally detracts from any good qualities that the story actually has because I'm so preoccupied with like, dude, would you just hold your freaking camera?
Like what I want to see is I want to know how they actually time travel.
It was like they just put him in a condom and then
they put him in something and they throw him down the butthole of time.
Him into time.
Well, they explain it way more in the series 12 Monkeys than they do in the actual movie.
Do you want to fill them in?
Yeah, why don't you? Also, you haven't like kind of chimed in on what you think of this movie. So, did you like this movie? Are you with Kadish?
No, I do like this movie,
Okay.
but I like the series better.
Once again, the table is split. Again.
Me and Vader are like the average customers.
Yeah. It's like movie snobs over here.
I'd say below average.
Oh, okay.
I like boobs.
I do like boobs. I do like boobs.
It's like hold your camera straight, and he's like, "Where's the tits?"
I'm sorry, there are no dinosaurs in 12 Monkeys, Alex.
There should be. They had the opportunity to go back.
Jude's trying to talk.
Sorry, Jude. Go ahead.
That's fine. I was done.
The patriarchy.
So Kadish and I watched the series back when we were first dating, and it's based on this movie. And I hadn't seen this movie in a very long time, so watching it for this, I was excited to watch it again because I loved the series so much. And going back and watching the movie that the series was based on was just a kind of cool event for me to be like, oh yeah, that's where they got that. And that's that character. And they like gender swapped her and just kind of going back and kind of retracing the steps of like the original content of this series that I really, really loved. Now I love this movie. Do I think it looks great visually? No, but I do still love the movie. I love the story. I love the time travel logic, and I love the relationships between the characters and how those evolve. The character of Dr. Rayleigh. I loved the evolution of her character, how she goes from the very disbelieving psychiatrist with like the heart, and there's something about him, and then the story of how she eventually gets on board and believes him, and then eventually falls in love with him and tries to get away with him. Yeah, And that whole scene that you keep seeing replaying throughout the movie of her rushing to some man dying and then finding out at the end of the movie that that's Cole. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a very full story for me.
I didn't have any problem with the story. I just don't like the visual style.
I agree with you.
Yeah. It just, to me, it detracts
It does.
so much. Because the story, like Jude pointed out, it's a really solid story.
It is.
And it's a lot of fun. And I even like the actors in it. Bruce Willis, I think, could have been swapped out for pretty much anybody. I didn't really think he brought anything specific to the table, but Brad Pitt, the whole storyline.
I highly recommend the series.
Originally, Terry Gilliam wanted Jeff Bridges for the Bruce Willis role.
I can see that.
But Universal was like, he's not an A-list actor. We need someone who can put butts in the seats.
Whatever, man. No, I just...
Wasn't that about the same time Lebowski came out? It's got to be.
Didn't do well when it first came out.
Lebowski was early 2000s, I think.
Was it?
Really?
Man, I keep thinking 90. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, I think, I don't know, besides Kadish, I think we're all on board. Like, it's just like his visual style is so drastically
but
different.
I mean, like that's Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
Theory. Like every Terry Gilliam movie
The
has
Big
that
Lebowski
visual
was
style.
98.
98? Okay. So it came out a year after this one. 2 years? No, 3 years. Because it was 95, right? I keep confusing the time in the movie
to the time
with when it came out.
So 12 Monkeys came out in 95. And while they were filming that is when Interview with the Vampire came out, which was 94.
But they talked about how the virus started killing people in 1997 in the movie.
Yeah.
And again, like all these movies, the future's always takes place in 97, like Escape
Now,
from New
what
York.
would have been really funny is if they had made that movie last year and we're trying to get it released this year.
I, like the opening credits, I was like, oh, this was okay.
there is a little bit more of a ominous.
It does, yeah. The pandemic kills 5
like,
billion people on the earth.
Well, that's kind of the
Humanity is forced to go underground.
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus.
That's kind of the interesting thing about all Terry Gilliam movies is they're all kind of ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And like when they come out, they're not very well appreciated.
Well, he takes a lot from like Orwell, right? From that Orwellian type vibe. So that kind of makes sense because I feel like we're starting to get into that time zone. We're like, yeah, that's
but I mean, he always has the worst luck with his movies. Like, I know that he was trying to make this one movie called The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. And there's a great documentary on this movie and how like it failed to get made. Because originally it was going to have Johnny Depp in it. And they actually started shooting the movie and then their financing fell through. And so like they only had like a third of a movie shot and the lead actor suffered like a herniated disc and he was like sidelined and all this other stuff. And I believe the documentary is called The Man from La Mancha. And if you watch that, it's just like the most stressful shoot. And Terry Gilliam always like kind of like suffers when he's trying to make movies. In fact, during 12 Monkeys, he was in a horse riding accident that almost killed him. And so like halfway through the movie, he actually paid a documentary crew to make a documentary about the making of 12 Monkeys. It's called The Hamster Effect. And the reason that he did this was because he wanted proof of, kind of like an objective look at the making of this film, because when he was making Brazil, he had to deal with so much interference from Universal in terms of like them trying to like re-edit the movie and stuff like that. And the only reason he agreed to do 12 Monkeys was if he got final cut of the movie, which he did.
I mean, they didn't just have Joss Whedon come in and finish it.
Exactly. So, it's Terry Gilliam has this kind of history of having like really cool documentaries made about the making of his movies, but they always showcase like how torturous of a process working with him is, or like working on his movies are. And it's very sad. But getting back to what Jude said, the TV show version of 12 Monkeys, the adaptation that Sci-Fi did, the Sci-Fi Network, is excellent. It's one of the best time travel stories I've ever seen. Because
is it directed by?
No, it has nothing to do with Gilliam.
Like, you might be able to watch it.
Yeah, I might be able to watch it then.
But like they take certain characters from the movie and kind of expand upon them, like Cole's relationship with Jose, his cellmate, is really like Jose becomes like a completely like
it's very more fleshed out.
I'd like to go back and watch this movie just to kind of figure out what his storyline is, because I was so distracted by all the bullshit on the screen that I had a hard time following what was going on sometimes. And seeing him show up in like World War I at one point, like I was thrown off. I'm like, whoa, that's like, it's interesting. I want to learn more about it.
I did like how like the time travel technology was not very accurate.
Like,
so
this kind of science is not an exact science.
6 years early.
We're going to send you back to 96 on the dot. And they send him back to like World War II.
And that's something that gets carried over into the TV show.
Yeah.
And the Goins character that Brad Pitt plays in the movie, he's gender swapped in the TV show.
Her name's Jennifer Goins.
Jennifer Goins. Is it? I thought it was Joanna.
No, it's Jennifer.
Okay, well,
it doesn't matter.
But it was kind of funny because when we were rewatching this movie, I turned to Jude and I was like, "Isn't it weird how the actress that they got for the TV show, like you could tell she studied Brad Pitt and incorporated a lot of his performance into her performance because like there were like gestures and facial expressions that she stole right from Pitt.
There was
like,
a lot of his crazy in her performance.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
but she eventually made it her own.
Yeah.
And like even the character of Jones, who's the astrophysicist, who at the end she's on the airplane with like the guy who's going to release the virus, like she becomes like a very central character in the TV show, and there's just like a bunch of stuff in the TV show that's really good. And I'd say that overall, the time travel in the TV show is some of the best use of time travel I've ever seen in anything. Even though there's certain things that they take some liberties with that I didn't quite like, but for the most part, it's flawless time travel logic.
And they explain it way more, get way more into detail of how it's accomplished in the TV show.
Yeah, but it's so complicated in the TV show that the fact that they're able to consistently pull it off is just, it's a testament to how well written the show is.
It's really good.
I'll have to check it out. Real quick, final thoughts on 12 Monkeys. Vader, what do you got for us? What's your...
Visually, it gives me a headache, but the story-wise, I thought it was pretty good.
Right on. Jude, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree. I would watch it again and again. I like it.
Okay.
I give it 1.5 thumbs up.
1.5?
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay.
3/4 of a thumb.
Yeah, it's like Freud's corn dog.
Okay. All right. I did not.
That's
did
a
not
T-shirt.
Like
Freud's corn dog.
I think I can make that happen. Yeah, I didn't like this movie very much at all. I can appreciate the time travel usage and the story itself. I feel like it could have been done better. Like if they would have stuck with the script and just had somebody else film it, I think it could have been 10 to 10. Or what does that say?
10 out of 10?
10 out of 10, thank you. But like with Gillian's style and it took me out of the movie so bad. I couldn't pay attention to it.
Now, you said that you didn't like any of the movies this week.
I may have exaggerated a little bit. It was because I tweeted that while I was watching 12 Monkeys and I was just in a bad mood.
Well, let me ask you, because this was your theme, you chose time travel.
Yeah.
And it's our job to torture whoever chooses the theme of
Yeah,
the
we
week.
need to discuss
What
that.
movie did you wish
what
we had
movie,
picked?
like when you chose the time travel theme, like what were you hoping to
get
out of it?
When I chose the topic, I had just got done watching the Back to the Future trilogy, and I was on like a time travel high. And I'm like, man, there's got to be some other cool time travel movies out there. And I'm like, I did enjoy Bill and Ted. Like I said, from the beginning of it, I was kind of like, all right, this is kind of like a dumb 80s like whatever movie. But then at the end, it kind of redeemed itself, so I kind of enjoyed it more by the ending. And what was the other one? Hot Tub Time Machine. Again, comedy's real subjective with me, but because it's a John Cusack movie, I give it like an extra star just because of that.
Okay.
But it's definitely not something that I would like, oh, I got to go watch Hot Tub Time Machine again. So I was like, I don't love these movies. But
Wait, so had you seen any of these movies before?
I have seen Hot Tub Time Machine.
Okay.
When it first came out. I think I may have rented it after it, hit shelves or whatever. But Bill and Ted, I saw the sequel. I've never seen the first one, so this is my first time watching the first one. And then 12 Monkeys.
You got to start watching movies in order, man.
I know. And then 12 Monkeys, I've always heard people talk about it. Like, oh, 12 Monkeys is a great movie. And I've never...
I love it. I love it when the tables split, dude.
It's not.
I really do.
It's so not, dude. Like,
The show's so much more fun when the tables...
Yeah.
50-50.
It's more fun
Again,
when we don't all agree.
we've
but
said it
also,
like,
I don't need
your
to
taste
listen
in
to
movies
you
is
guys fight for 3 hours.
But anyway, I don't know. These aren't my favorite movies. I wish everything could be as good as Back to the Future.
I wish you guys could have picked better movies.
That seems to be a going theme.
Yeah, at least they didn't chopping mall you. Okay?
I stand by my choice.
Such a bullshit movie.
I saw.
And Bad Taste.
Bad
I got
Taste.
double posed.
Yeah, you did.
I think I earned another week of theme.
We'll give you the first pick for August after Jude's done with her birthday picks. All right. Well, that's our final thoughts on these movies. Go check them out. I don't think any of them are available on streaming services. I had to rent these movies, I think. Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, Bill and Ted is on
Bill and Ted's is on Stars.
Yeah, I watched it on Stars.
Which I don't understand what's going on with them and Cox, because I watched Predator and some other movie last week on Stars.
Yeah.
And this movie was on Stars.
And if you're listening, not in the Vegas area, Cox is a cable network.
Yeah. Everybody.
Wait, is Cox there?
It's
Neither
everywhere.
Cox nor Dix.
Okay.
But I had to pay for Bill and Ted's, but it's on their service.
Oh, that's weird.
So I don't know. There must be different levels of the service or something.
Well, I already owned all these movies.
Oh, well, yeah, no, because I'm a movie buff and I own everything. So
We are always asking you guys if you want to come over and watch it with us, and you never do.
That's it. That's our discussion for time travel movies, 12 Monkeys, Hot Tub Time Machine, and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Before we head out, I just wanted to remind everybody, please go to saltynerdclub.com. Consider supporting the podcast. That takes you straight to our Patreon page. We have awesome tiers that you can choose from. We have exclusive content. We've got stickers. We've got t-shirts. We've got all kinds of cool stuff. So
you can also go to saltylist.com to sign up for our newsletter and get notified when new episodes are released.
Yes, that's true. You can get a notification when we drop new episodes, which is usually, unless some extreme circumstances happening, is Mondays and Fridays we release our new episodes. So go over to saltynerdlist.com and saltynerdclub.com, saltynerd.com itself. Just go there, check out our stuff, support the podcast, join the community, and join the discussion. Before we head out, where can we find you on the socials, Matt Vader?
Matt Vader 74, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
And you made affiliate on Twitch,
I
right?
did. I made affiliate this week.
Congratulations,
so that's
buddy.
kind of fun. So
that's awesome.
I can get the bits now.
Yeah.
Get the bits and the subs.
I don't know how that works, but congratulations.
Give me some cheddar. I made $1 yesterday.
You did?
I did.
Dang, that's awesome.
your first
Guess who? Guess who?
Who? Nick. It's gotta be Nick. Of course it is.
He loves to shower you with
Love that
bits.
guy.
It's hilarious.
That's awesome. Thank you, Nick. We appreciate your support, man, for the podcast, for each individual's channels. It's awesome. It's amazing. And where can we find you, Jude?
At I am Juju on Instagram and Twitter.
Right on. Thanks for joining the show. And Matthew Kadish, where can they find you?
At Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com if you want to check out my books on Amazon.
And I am the Salty Nerd. You can find me at salty_nerd pretty much anywhere. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
The TikToks.
I haven't made a TikTok video in a while.
I deleted it.
You deleted the app
I
again?
Chinese spyware on my phone. Forget that.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.